Deep in the icy Arctic, where sunlight is a false promise in the endless winter months, lives a creature woven from myth, the narwhal. It is not a mermaid or a sea monster, but a small, gentle white whale, bearing a spiral horn up to 3 meters long, straight and gleaming like the spear of myth. That horn, which is actually a tusk extending through the upper lip, has made the narwhal a living embodiment of the magic and mystery of the icy ocean. It is this unique existence that has anchored it to the Inuit psyche and livelihood for millennia. The narwhal is the soul of the Narwhal and Beluga hunting reserves, the broken ice seas of Canada, Greenland and Russia. They are true denizens of the ice world, living in conditions unforgiving to most other mammals, diving miles into the dark sea in search of flounder and squid. Their lives are a tense ballet between life and death, swimming in narrow crevices of ice called polyneus. Surfacing only long enough to catch their breath before plunging back into the bitter cold. It is the mysterious tusk that has caused so much controversy and fascination. For centuries, when these horns washed up on European shores, they were sold as magical treasures, said to be the horn of the land unicorn, with the power to cure and cure all diseases. Kings and queens paid huge sums for a piece of narwhal tusk. Cementing its legendary status. For the Inuit, however, it is not a mystical ornament or talisman, but an essential part of life, a priceless source of material resources and a profound cultural symbol. The relationship between the Inuit and the narwhal is not a simple hunting story, but a long-standing symbiosis, built on a deep understanding of the Arctic ecosystem and absolute respect. In a world where everything is scarce and danger lurks, hunting the narwhal is an art of survival, a necessary exchange between man and nature to sustain life. It is a tradition passed down through the whispers of kayaks and the firmness of carved harpoons. The hunt takes place when the narwhal herds migrate in the summer, swimming along the edge of the melting ice. This is the golden time, when the sea opens up to hunters desperate for protein and stored energy for the coming winter. The art of hunting narwhal requires infinite patience, absolute silence, and an astonishing skill in reading the ice and waves. Inuit hunters travel by kayak or small boat, weaving through the jagged icebergs. They must blend into their environment, disappearing from the sight of underwater creatures that are sensitive to sound and vibration. A loud noise, a sudden movement can cause the whales to dive deep and disappear forever. When they spot a pod, they never rush, they watch, learning to predict the direction and when the narwhal will surface to breathe. This requires an almost psychic connection with their prey. The decisive moment comes when the hunters are close enough, often just a few meters away. The hunters row as gently as possible, using a traditional harpoon with a strong rope. The throw must be precise, decisive, and as humane as possible. The harpoon, attached to a sealskin inflatable, serves two purposes: to slow the animal and to mark its location. The inflatable prevents the injured whale from diving too deep and disappearing. Once the animal is caught, the entire community joins in towing it to shore, often flat ice floes or rocky beaches. The value of the narwhal to the Inuit is comprehensive. The meat provides essential protein, the fat is used for fuel and heat, the skin, called muktik, especially around the tail fin, is a vital food source. Rich in vitamin C, a rare nutrient essential to fight scurvy in the Arctic, where vegetables are scarce. The precious ivory, once retained in part by the Inuit for tool carving and art, became an important source of income when sold on international markets, allowing them to purchase fuel, guns and other modern necessities to sustain life in an increasingly changing world. But the story of the hunt is not as simple as it once was. Today, narwhal hunting is subject to strict restrictions imposed by the governments of Canada and Greenland. Based on scientific studies of whale populations, each community is allocated a quota, ensuring that the hunt is sustainable and does not threaten the survival of the species. The delicate balance between ancient tradition and modern conservation presents a complex challenge. As ice melts due to climate change, narwhal habitats are threatened, and pressure from international conservation groups increases. The Inuit are at a crossroads. They must defend their right to live the way their ancestors did, to hunt for subsistence and maintain their culture, while also confronting the global reality of the fragility of the natural world. But deeper than the controversy and the rules, narwhal remains a bridge between people and myth. Its twisted tusk is not just a tooth, but also an extremely sensitive sensory organ, which scientists have discovered can sense the pressure, temperature, and salinity of the seawater. It is a biological antenna that helps them navigate and find food in the eternal darkness. This has deepened the Inuit reverence for it, a creature steeped in mystery, holding within it the key to the very world they inhabit. When hunters return from the ice with their spoils, it is not just a material resupply, it is a reaffirmation of their sacred relationship with Sela, the atmosphere, the weather, the wisdom of the universe. They have proven once again that they understand and respect the unwritten laws of the Arctic, where survival requires the courage of the hunter and the grace of the mythical creature with the horn of greatness. The narwhal, then, is not prey, but a teacher, a companion on a journey that has lasted thousands of years across the loneliest white strip of land on the planet. The North Sea, or any of the frigid waters bordering Europe's shores, is not a playground, it's a battlefield, where the cold bites and the fury of the waves can drown hope in minutes. On the massive, steel and technology trawler called the Eye of the Sea, everything revolves around one goal: catch fish. Not a few, not a ton, but dozens, even hundreds of tons in a single trip, enough to feed a coastal city for weeks. Inside the warm cockpit, Captain Lars, a Swede with eyes as sharp as ice, scans the sonar screen. The blue and red curves on the screen are more than just images, they are cash. Diesel, risk and reward. It has been 3 days since they left the port of Rotterdam, and down below, The hold is still cold and empty. Below Lars, a crew of 15 was preparing for their biggest job of the night. They had no fishing rods or traps. Their weapon was a woven nylon and steel monster, a trawl net. A trawl net was more than a bag, it was an architect of the hunt. What Lars was about to lower 400 meters into the water was a structure with a mouth wider than a football field, held open by two giant steel plates called trawl doors. These doors, weighing tons, plowed the seafloor or suspended in the water column, using hydrodynamic pressure to hold the net open, like a gaping maw swallowing everything in its path. When Lars gave the signal over the radio, the winches began to rumble like a small earthquake. The crew moved in a relentless rhythm that was ingrained in their flesh. Meter by meter, the steel cable, the diameter of a man's bicep, was released, carrying the giant net with it. Cold seawater sprayed up as the shiny black screens, built to withstand the pulling force of hundreds of cars, sank into the ocean darkness. A sense of tension permeated the ship. It was a moment of human mechanical power meeting the endless. Unpredictable sea. Hours passed in tense silence. The trawl lurked in the darkness, collecting schools of cod, salmon, flounder, and other rare whitefish, monitored by electronic sensors mounted on the net that sent data back to the cockpit. Lars watched the pressure on the cable. Any small change could signal a surprise catch, or a catastrophic disaster if the net got stuck on a shipwreck or reef. This is a story about thousands of tons of fish, but it is also a story about hydraulics and infallible navigation technology. Finally, after a long night of pulling the tow, Lars's voice rang out, "Pull up the net. Close the hold. Prepare to receive the cargo." That's when the real drama began. The Eye of the Sea's hydraulic winch system, designed to lift weights beyond the limits of common sense, roared like a wounded animal. The speed of the tow was slow, careful, because if pulled too fast, the change in pressure could burst the fish's air bubbles, ruin the quality of the catch, or even tear the net worth a house. Steel rubbed against steel, creating an eerie frictional sound, as if the ship were groaning under the invisible weight of the ocean. After half an hour of tension, the giant net doors appeared, getting smaller and smaller as they were pulled up along the side of the ship. But it wasn't a net yet. It was just a guide. Then the belly of the net appeared. It wasn't a bag, it was a water bomb. The last part of the net, called the cod end, where all the fish had been gathered, now bulged beneath the surface. A glistening, black mass. The mass was impossible to estimate by eye, but Lars knew from experience, this was a historic catch. It was so large that, if not lifted properly, it could capsize a ship smaller than the Eye of the Sea. A brave sailor named Johan climbed onto a protruding steel beam, preparing to tie the auxiliary cable to lift the bag of fish. He moved lightning fast, avoiding the wave that was trying to pull him down. Once the bag was secured, the ship's main crane, not the net winch, began to work. The crane roared, and the mass of water, fish, and pressure began to lift from the surface of the sea. It rose, black and loose, then tightened as the water drained away, revealing a huge mass of silver, blue, and red, twitching violently inside. It was heavy, terrible, a living testament to humanity's limitless exploitation of resources. The mass of fish hung suspended above the deck, so heavy the deck shook beneath their feet. "Open the fish sack," Lars shouted. And then, it happened. The mass of fish was released. It wasn't a flow, it was a silent explosion. Tons of fish, a rough estimate of more than 50 tons in this haul alone, crashed to the deck, the deafening sound of tens of thousands of fish hitting each other. The steel, and the air was the violent symphony of industrial fishing. The deck disappeared under a living carpet, twitching, shimmering silver and red like a boiling river of metal. The crew had no time to admire. Behind the excitement of the big catch was a fierce race against time. The fish had to be processed immediately to preserve freshness and market value. They began the sorting process. Big fish, small fish, different species, all were raked and pushed onto processing belts. Everyone worked in an organized frenzy. Sharp blades sliced open the cod, removing the entrails in rapid, mechanical movements honed over thousands of hours. The scent of fish blood, seawater, and diesel fuel blends into the signature scent of riches at sea. Below deck, in the processing area, it is a cold industrial slaughterhouse. The cleaned fish are put through specialized chillers, and finally placed in refrigerated containers or packed in ice according to strict European procedures. Each fish processed is €1 earned, but it is paid for by the sacrifice of sleep, safety, and personal comfort of the sailors. The eye of the sea will perform this process over and over again for days. They will cast nets, wait, pull in nets, and process. Each catch can vary from a few tons of acceptable to golden catches like tonight, where 50 to 70 tons of fish are brought to the deck in just a few minutes. When the hold is filled, when the deck is washed and restored to its cold steel, the eye of the sea will begin its journey back to land, carrying a large quantity of frozen protein, a vast fortune waiting to be traded. Looking at Lars from the cockpit, his eyes are no longer on the sonar, but on the horizon, dyed grey by dawn. He knows that these great catches, made with technology and steel, have forever changed the marine ecosystem. It is the delicate balance between feeding humanity and preserving the ocean. It is the burden of every modern trawler. They are the harvesters, the bringers of abundance, but also the witnesses of depletion. But for now, with the warmth of the bundles of money deep in the bilge, and the smell of salted fish still lingering on his clothes, Lars is simply a captain. bringing his ship home after winning a fierce battle with the ocean. The boat, laden with tons of fish, turned the tide, and the trawling journey came to a temporary end. Now, the journey home was a calm contrast to the recent hunting storm. The eye of the sea, always a roaring machine of power, now lumbered and lumbered through the calmer waters. All the pent-up tension of the crew had melted away, replaced by a deep fatigue. 15 men lay scattered in cramped quarters, each sleeping lightly, interrupted only by the steady hum of the diesel engines and the distant crash of waves against the steel hull. They were no longer hunters, they were guardians of the treasure sleeping within the ship. Lars never got enough sleep on these trips. He leaned back in the leather chair in the cockpit, sipping his scalding coffee. He looked through the logbook, 7 days at sea. A total of 3 golden hauls and 6 standard hauls. The total fish in the refrigerated hold is estimated at 250 tons. Mostly North Atlantic cod and pollock, sorted, cleaned, and frozen on site, preserving near-perfect freshness. It's a number that makes any voyage worthwhile, but also one that worries ecologists. As the ship nears the Dutch coast, life on board begins to change. Instead of the smell of fish blood and diesel fuel, the air smells of clean sea salt and moisture from the mainland. The crew wakes, not for hard work, but for the final act, unloading. At dawn on the 8th day, the eye of the sea looms into the Dutch port of IJmuiden. This port, a huge seafood trading center, is where their frantic efforts will be cashed in. Lars brings the ship slowly into port, respectful of the weight it carries. On the docks, brokers, stevedores, and representatives from the processing plants were waiting like patient vultures. As the jetty was lowered, Johan and 2 others unlocked the freezer compartments. A sudden chill rushed in, carrying with it the pungent smell of fish. This was the moment of truth. The unloading process was a logistical miracle. Neatly stacked crates of frozen fish were carefully lifted from the hold by shore cranes. Each crate was placed on a large scale right on the docks. The weight was recorded, checked, and then transferred to the auction area. The entire 250 tons of fish were unloaded in less than 5 hours. A testament to the industrial efficiency of the European supply chain. Once the fish were unloaded, Lars and the representative of the company that owns CI, a man in a suit and glasses, entered the seafood auction floor. It's a cold, modern room where buyers, from large food companies to small distributors, sit in front of digital screens. This is where the drama is at its best, but it's silent and fast-paced. CI's cod are assigned a code and displayed on the screen. Wait.